This is Mike Smullen, Executive Director of the Alumni Relations Office at NJIT. Welcome to our latest Highlander Chat, Digital Leadership in Healthcare Marketing. Our guest today is Ann Saitta, Master's Class of 1999, Chief Digital Officer at Omnicom Health Group. She's an award-winning healthcare technology and digital analytics executive with more than a decade of C-level experience in her field and over 20 years in technology innovation. She's a recognized leader of digital transformation, product development, M&A, and creating strategic partnerships. She's been recognized by PM360 as an elite digital crusader. She's a member of the board of directors for Women Rising. She was a keynote speaker at the American Heart Association's Go Red campaign, and I'm very proud to say a Highlander alumna. Joanne, welcome to our Highlander chat today.
Thanks, Mike, for having me.
It's my pleasure. First and most importantly, I want to ask you, how are you faring? How's your family faring?
Thank you so much. We are thankfully doing very well. I have a son, a daughter, and my husband, and 2 little dogs. And thankfully, we are all healthy and safe.
Oh, man, that's great. So at least if you are home, you have a nice group of people you can share it with.
Yes.
That's wonderful. Well, I hope you've been enjoying the beautiful weather the last couple of days. It's a great time for puppies, too.
Yeah.
So, Joanne, I want to jump right into it. You're currently the Chief Digital Officer at Omnicom Health Group, which is one of the largest healthcare marketing companies in the world. With the advent of the coronavirus pandemic, we've definitely seen a shift in healthcare marketing and how organizations have had to adjust their marketing plans. What are some of the significant trends, or maybe the most significant trends, that you've seen among some of the healthcare companies coming out of what's been going on for the last few months?
Sure. A huge move to digital, meaning everything that was done personal and previously is now moved to complete digital means and channels. I support global pharmaceutical companies, and they've had large sales forces that can't visit doctors' offices. And so we are now really helping them deploy all digital channels so that communication can occur just like this is occurring for you and I. We've also seen a lot of significant medical conferences need to be canceled. And so really important clinical information still needs to be distributed to doctors and to nurses and to patients, quite frankly. And our calling is really around how do we quickly enable all of the digital platforms at our disposal for our clients so that we can keep communications healthy and accessible for patients and doctors.
Well, that's great. I'm glad to see that everybody else is adjusting the same way we are. It's a wonderful feeling.
I can add something else if you like.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Another way that we're seeing our clients adjust to the impacts of COVID-19 is really helping them look at their technology infrastructure and really helping them optimize it. It's often like when you buy a new electronic device or you've got that new Apple iPhone, you don't quite know all of the features that exist until sometimes you're forced to use them. And so similarly, we're helping clients really maximize the technology investments that they've already made in their own infrastructure and helping them pleasantly be surprised to some of the capabilities that might exist that they've never had to really deploy thus far.
So I've got to say, I find that very, very interesting because when I think about it, it's almost like you go out, you buy a new iPhone, and as you mentioned, you don't know all the bells and whistles, right? But it's such a scale of difference. Healthcare companies have enormous budgets for these sort of things. I have to imagine that you have to have a pretty insider knowledge of how healthcare companies work to figure out how to bridge the gap between those different silos that exist in these companies. Is that something that you've had to overcome, both in terms of the sort of technology that you've worked with, but also in terms of how you get healthcare companies to actually work most effectively with technology?
Definitely. I find it a very exciting part of my role, actually, is to help break down technology and data silos that exist inside of healthcare companies. There's such a rich amount of insight from data that exists inside of a healthcare company, and really unleashing that into more data-driven digital decisions is really exciting to me, and really the opportunity for the clients that we help. And so through data, we're really able to help break down digital silos and better connect digital ecosystems.
So data is right up the alley of an NJIT alumna. It's also very relevant, obviously, today to pretty much everybody, right? It's data and healthcare data on all of our minds. I know it's healthcare information management or health information management and so on. This has been a focus of NJIT's. We have a nonprofit corporation housed at NJIT called NJII, which is our innovation institute that's been tasked by our state with working with hospitals, working with companies to bring all this together. The thing is, I think for most folks, this has been something that's really percolated over the last few years. You've been aware of this for quite some time, starting off in the tech field as you did, and then coming into this. Um, and more than just collecting the data, you've been a real advocate for patients to have access to that data and to make decisions, as you just mentioned. I've got to ask, what brought you to that mindset? Actually making it useful to people and trying to make them aware of what that data is and how to use that.
I think it's it's really rewarding, the work that I do, and to be able to be in healthcare, and knowing that communication is so critical for the outcome of a patient's illness. And so, really using data and digital to better communicate, whether it's disease awareness to patients, or the opportunities for them to identify different treatment, or for them to have a better, more well-informed discussion with their physician, is really very rewarding. And we are just at a time in technology and in our world right now where the advances in technology allow us to do that for patients. I think the opportunity is really bridging gaps that exist. Really helping patients in all types of locations and all different demographics have access to not only drugs, but the communication and the digital tools that they might need in order for them to better their health and to better their outcomes.
Yeah, that's great. It's definitely something that we see accelerating, or at least I've read about the acceleration that's currently taking place. Do you think that the amount of information and the way that it's conveyed to people at large is starting to change, or do you think it's really just a question of how that information is packaged to people?
Um, I think it's a little bit of both. I do think that the information has changed in that there's a lot more information. There's a lot more data and information that exists, and it can be overwhelming for a patient trying to sift through that information. It can be overwhelming for a physician trying to understand new clinical treatments. And I think the power of digital and data is to really live up to the promise of finding and delivering, I should say, the right message to the right person at the right time. And I think that's really the opportunity we have in using data and digital to do just that in either a patient's journey in their managing their health, or in a physician's journey in identifying patients or being able to recommend or prescribe for them the best therapeutic treatment. And so we have the opportunity through digital and technology to speed up those journeys so that we have better outcomes for patients and doctors. So to answer your question, I think there's a lot more volume of data. But I also think there's a lot more at our disposal to manage that data and truly change that overwhelming amount of data into an opportunity to deliver relevant messages to the right patient, doctor at the right time.
So it seems to me that that ties back a little bit to that whole bells and whistles conversation we were just having, where you have these tools that are actually absorbing so much of this information and turning it into something meaningful. I'm sure that that's one of the bigger challenges for healthcare companies. In advance of our interview here, I was struck by the scale of what a healthcare company actually is, because you have hospitals and pharmaceutical companies, you've got technology companies, you've got record keeping companies, uh, lawyers ad nauseum for this. This is an enormous, enormous field. And in fact, in one of the other interviews I read that you had done, somebody said a chief digital officer is more like a chief everything officer, which I found very funny and I think applicable. Um, so you're at this apex of all this different activity. What are some of the biggest challenges you think face healthcare companies right now? Um, and are they the same across industry, or is each one of these subsections really particular in terms of what they need to overcome?
Well, my business, we exclusively focus on pharmaceutical companies. But that said, I do believe there are different needs for hospital systems and other healthcare companies that are different than pharmaceutical companies. So I do think there are differences. But I do think that the challenges remain similar, meaning that in a post COVID-19 world, we have seen the acceleration of telehealth and telehealth tools accelerate. And I think there's a statistic that's something around like over close to a billion telehealth experiences will kind of occur by the end of 2020. And I think that companies today, no matter what part of healthcare that they're in, that they are challenged with finding the opportunities in their current technology and digital infrastructure, getting back to their maybe bells and whistles that they didn't know about, that they should know about, so they can really optimize them. I think now is the time for all healthcare companies to look at where they can break down those data silos inside of their own companies. And I think the other opportunity that we're seeing is a real focus on relevant content. And so that is adding to the deliver the right message to the right person at the right time. But the relevancy gets back to the content and that it's meaningful to whoever it lands on. And so I think that is a challenge for all healthcare companies. And they're seeking to do that better and to do that more competitively, of course, than others in their space.
I can definitely see how technology is such a huge part of how you achieve that. You know, how else would you know how to customize messaging and deliver it at the right time? Um, when I read your background, I was very intrigued to find out that you had been at IBM first, and then you went to Prudential for a while, where we have a large alumni presence. But in each one of those areas, you were a leader in technology. So I'm curious as to that path. You know, when you graduate, you get a master's from NJIT, you go into the tech field, you've got the background in the tech field before that, and then it's not quite a pivot, but you really accelerate in this one area. How did you find yourself focusing on healthcare from a background as you had?
I always love the transferability, if that's a word, of technology skills into multiple areas or multiple industries. Um, but when it came to healthcare, I think I kind of stumbled upon kind of working for a company that um, needed help in kind of moving from a current state of technology where they didn't quite feel they were leveraging all the bells and whistles to how do we kind of optimize moving forward. And that problem solving really attracted me, and it still does attracts me to the roles that I take on and the challenges that I take on. And so that's been extremely rewarding in the healthcare industry to know that ultimately the end impact is not so much about sales or selling a specific product or widget, but that there's truly an impact to a personal life, that life can be lived better, or that there's some disease that's cured. That's a very rewarding aspect of what you do when you work in healthcare. And for me, in technology, it doesn't compare to what doctors and nurses do day in and day out. But if I can contribute in some small way through the tools that they may leverage, or accelerate the way that they can kind of perform their work, that's very rewarding to me. And so I've been in healthcare now 15 years, and I really can't see myself diverging. I just think it's so rewarding to take a technology background and apply it in this way that actually has real world, real life, life-saving impact. And that's very rewarding to me.
So, I'm hearing you speak so passionately about this and the ways that you're contributing, and the sense of mission that you have here. I'm also put in mind of the fact that, as incredibly busy as you are, you're also involved in a lot of nonprofit work, and a lot of personal outreach and work that you do. How do you manage that, and how do you feel that you've been able to contribute in those ways?
I'm not sure I've figured out if there's a way to manage it successfully, but I really I do love that. There's two causes that are really important to me, and both of them kind of have a common theme about really helping to bring awareness and opportunity to women, that they might have the same opportunities, quite frankly, that I did. And so through one organization, through the American Heart Association, I'm really able to bring awareness and advocacy, and specifically to women and heart disease, and how it might be different than it might traditionally be thought of. Again, that's very rewarding. I am also a survivor, and so I tell my story for the AHA. And if we can help save one life, and if we can help make others have a more productive life, that is a very rewarding thing to all of us at the AHA. And secondly, finding the time for serving women in underserved communities, or who are struggling with domestic violence or other types of abuse, giving them an opportunity to advance themselves is both of these are really passions. And I think maybe the point here is, when you find something that you're passionate about, you give it your all, and you give it as much as you can. And so I think that's been the trick for me, is just finding things that I'm really passionate about, and giving it what I can is really giving it my all.
I really appreciate you sharing that. I know when I was reading about some of your work, I found it personally inspiring. I know that many NJIT students, NJIT alumni, and there's more than 70,000 alumni out there, I think share that idea of working so hard, but also would be inspired by what you've been able to achieve as well. It does put me in mind that your master's degree at NJIT must have contributed in some way to some of the things you've been able to achieve. So I'm curious, what was your experience like at NJIT? Do you feel that that's helped either guide or assisted you in this path that you followed?
Oh, it has definitely assisted me and been a platform for my success, quite frankly. I have to say, one of the things that my master's experience at NJIT was very much remote. It was, asynchronous learning, and I used to get boxes of, videotapes, and it was what worked for me. I was a mom raising twins, young twins, and I worked on my master's through taking all of my courses through video and online chat, which is nothing as sophisticated as we have now. But it was really the early beginnings of distance learning. And that was a phenomenal opportunity for me. And quite frankly, the only way that I could have gotten my master's while trying to raise two young children. I had twins at the time. Secondly, the educational preparation in problem solving continues to kind of benefit me in so many ways. I am very fortunate to have been a student at NJIT for the program that I went through. for the science, tech, engineering, and math approach to solving problems has really given me an opportunity to solve bigger problems than what I did when I was working on my master's degree. And so I take all of the learnings that I gained from NJIT, the whole experience in achieving my master's, to really the curriculum itself, and applying those problem solving skills to real life challenges.
Joanne, that was great. Not only is it an inspiration for me in my job as director of alumni, but I know that that's a really inspiring message for others in terms of what they can achieve. I can only imagine a box of videotapes, frankly.
Oh, can you imagine? I mean, it was like
Yeah.
prehistoric,
it's
but
it's
I looked.
extremely heavy. You have to rewind, be kind, rewind when you're
Oh my,
done.
yes, yeah, yeah. It was awesome. I never could have done my master's without it.
Well, Joanne, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure and a delight. And I hope that when this all passes, I can welcome you back to campus. And I want to offer you my best wishes to you and your family from NJIT, the Alumni Association, and all of the Highlander community out there.
Thank you so much, Mike. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. So again, this is Mike Smallin, Executive Director of the Alumni Relations Office at NJIT. It's been my pleasure to welcome you to our most recent Highlander Chat, Digital Leadership and Healthcare Marketing, with our guest, Ann Saitta, class of 1999 with a master's, Chief Digital Officer of Omnicom Health Group. As a reminder, please leave any comments for Joanne in the fields below wherever you happen to be viewing this on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. We'll be happy to forward those questions on. Make sure to stay connected with us at njit.edu/alumni or at highlandernation.org, where we post a lot of our interactive content to our online community. Finally, my best wishes to all of you out there. I hope everything's going well for you and your families. Make sure to stay tuned for our next Highlander Chats, which you can also find not just online, but also at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. In the meantime, my best wishes to all of you, and go Highlanders.